Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Adria. So we're in good hands with those guys in the background, and I'll be taking it from here as we talk about evidence-based writing instruction for the ESL classroom. So great to see you guys. It was really great to see you in Moodle. You guys have been doing a lot of work. I know, a lot of reading, a lot of sharing and commenting, and what I really was encouraging for me is just seeing the interaction between different people, listening to what people had to say, and then kind of reflecting and making it their own or giving new ideas. It was really encouraging for me. I mean, we love to see that when people were learning with our learning together, sometimes without us, right? So I'm really glad you're here. As Adria said earlier, we do have a good amount of content to go through. I'm going to encourage you to do a few things. One is to maybe have, if you don't have two screens or not a screen splitter, to just have a paper and pencil ready to take some notes of things that you might want to hold on to make sure that you implement in your last 2 weeks and going forward in your class. Um, there is a lot of time for reflection here. I'm going to be posting a lot of questions in chat and just speaking them to you. And I want you to encourage you to engage. We're a small group. Go ahead and unmic yourself and or type in the chat if that feels more comfortable to you. Um, and so with that, I welcome Lisa. Good to have you with us. And of course, Janine, great to have you too. Raina, everybody in the room. Let's continue. So we've got 6 different things on our agenda today, and as I read them aloud to you, I want you to notice they're numbered. And like we did in session 1, I want you to think about, I'm going to force you to make a choice. Which one of these 6 items, and you can type it in the chat or show me with a finger or 2 or 6, which is most important for you? So we're going to start out by checking in. Where are you with the content so far and some of the skills related to writing, with questions you have, issues, or maybe challenges that have come up for you as you begin implementing. I want to talk about this idea of instruction as both explicit and implicit and how that works in an ESL classroom. We're going to, number 3, do a little review on lesson planning because the end of this week and all of next week is all about your creating a lesson plan that's evidence-based writing lesson plan. And so we're going to be looking at the parts of a sequence lesson plan just as a reminder. For some of us, it's new. Some of us, oh yeah, I forgot that. We'll be talking about activities to fill in those different stages of the writing lesson plan. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about evaluating students' writings, giving you some tools that you might add to your collection. They are in Moodle. But just talking about those, giving you a chance to share about that, and then just kind of looking forward towards the end of the class. Towards the end of at the end of this webinar, what was your biggest aha from today? And then what do you need to know going forward? What are you excited about? Because we really want this to be catalyst for implementation. So let me just quickly check the chat. And you guys go ahead and type in the chat 1 through 6, which is most important for you? Okay, great. I'm seeing a 3 and seeing a couple 5s. Okay, excellent. A few 5s. Okay, great. Well, I'm going to push us forward. I'm going to make sure that we spend good time on number 5 and we cover the other stuff as well. So let's forge ahead. So I'm going to put some questions on the screen, and I just want you to think about them. Um, are there any things that have come up for you that give you questions or kind of challenge you? You're kind of curious about. For example, what do you really need to know more about? Do you feel like we've kind of skipped some things that you want to go deeper on? Do you have any questions about the steps of the writing process? I'm going to just keep clicking here. You just keep looking and feel free to type in the chat or on mic. What's hard? What's hard about teaching writing? What do you want help with? Do you have any questions about lesson planning? Or we'll get into those later, so you can hold on to those probably. But what's been most useful? And are there any just general comments about the course you'd like to share? We're going to take about 8 minutes, just kind of share with each other, see where you're at, how you're feeling about things. Really want to customize this for you. We talked about pre-writing and graphic organizers as a part of that, and it's about structuring and drafting. We've talked about the different stages and different activities. Anybody care to comment? Questions, issues, challenges? Ah, okay. Janine, thank you for sharing. How do we explicitly teach sentence structure in an advanced reading and writing class? Okay, so these are ESL students, but they're advanced, you're saying, yes? Okay, so sentence structure. That's a great one. I will say there's a lot to be said for sentence combining. You look like you know what I'm talking about. We can talk more about that a little bit later. And I'm making a note of some of these questions because if they're not explicitly within our agenda and I don't have time to talk about them now, I want to share some resources with you in Moodle so you can grab those. So sentence structuring. Part of it is having a good list of those really good uh, transition words, words that begin your phrases and clauses. So transition words, first, next, then, finally, those are basic. But for higher levels, you've got when they're doing comparisons and analysis where they have to describe, you're going to need some more words like consequently, therefore, however, so you can start with simplified words like but and and then show the higher level word and show how it works within the sentence. But I think that's a really great question, Janine, and I'm making a note of it um, so I can share more in Moodle, okay? Is there anything particularly you want to share more about that? Okay, you did already. Last time I taught it, some students could have benefited more from this. So you're wanting to do it this semester. I love that. I love that you're watching your students and paying attention to them. Some of the students said it was too easy.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can I can actually talk
go
now.
for it.
Sorry, I was loud here for a minute. Yeah, the more, it's a really mixed level advanced
Yeah,
class, and probably all of us have that situation. Just like the super advanced ones were like, I know this. We've been doing clause types in every
yeah,
class I've ever
yeah,
taken. I know
yeah,
fanboys, I know subordinating conjunctions. And so
yeah,
I'm thinking actually as I listen to you that maybe the paragraph frames would be handy,
yeah.
just
Love that.
so the language is there for the lower levels and the upper levels can use it or can replace it.
That's nice. I love that. And something you made me think of too, it just fell out of my head. Oh, the cause. What type of writing is it? I think when students know what their structure is, are they doing a comparison? Are they doing a sequence or a procedural writing? If they're doing um, more of a narrative. I think those writing structures can really help them understand what type of words to use and how to put those. So if you can say there are five types of writing, let's say, and today we're doing this kind, and these are kind of some of the sentences that you might see, and maybe have a model, a reading that has it. And you can even put it in the chat GPT to create one for you if you don't have one readily. Just put the topic, just say, I want this kind of writing and I want some sample sentences. Boom, you got good to go in like 5 minutes. So those are my initial ideas, and I'm sure you have some other great ones too. If there's anything else you want to say about that, I'm happy to hear it. Um, Otherwise, we can move on. Feel free to type. I do see Rain is talking about lower levels. Yes, I have some ideas for that as well. Um, I think we're going to talk about that actually in our next area of discussion right now, Raina, and then we can talk more about it later. I will say to everyone in the room that in the resources folder in Moodle, there are many great resources. This course was initially created for intermediate to advanced writers, but I know that a lot of people who are beginning level teachers are in this class and always are. So I've put more in there um, to support you. One other thing I want to call your attention to, I don't know if you know who Kaplan is. He did a study on the different types of writing in different cultures or the style of writing or the structure of writing in different cultures. And there's a great graphic. And if you haven't thought about this, it can really help you understand your students. For example, many students, not all, from Middle Eastern cultures, there's a circular kind of concentric circle wrapping into structure. Whereas in the US and Western, we're like, here's a topic, here are three details, here's a closure, and boom. We are very straight to the point. We want it clear and clean. Whereas some other cultures, they go back and forth. Here's a point, but here's this and here's that. So check that out because I think when we understand where our students coming from, it helps us go, oh, no wonder they're writing that way. So again, check out those resources in the Moodle resource folder. Okay. Anything else? These are great, you guys. I love talking about this stuff. I'm an instructional geek. And welcome, by the way, Adela. Okay, let's move on because this kind of ties with what we're going to talk about now, ties with a little bit, I think, with what Raina was talking about. So you can see on the screen, there's this idea of implicit versus explicit instruction. And I just want to ask you, um, what, let me click on the screen here. What are they? What are the differences? Feel free to unmute or type in the chat when you compare implicit with explicit. What what are we talking about here? When I tell you up front, this is our agenda and this is what we're doing, and I'm going to show you how, is that implicit or explicit?
Explicit.
Yeah, that's explicit. It's clear. It's on the outside. I'm putting it front and center. This is what we're doing, and this is how you do it. It requires more language. Yeah. How about when I say, okay, everybody take out a pen and I'm going to show you a picture. And it's when I say go, see how many words you can write in the first minute. Is that implicit or explicit?
Implicit.
Implicit. And then I say, what we just did was brainstorming. We're getting ideas. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. Explicit is very specific and direct. Students learn the rules and they got a clear example and they know why at the beginning. Whereas implicit, we're going to do an activity and then we're going to name it. But we want students to have an experience first because that might be more impactful. And by the way, hey, Stella. Um, so again, implicit students learn by doing, okay? So another question for you, are there stages of the writing process or steps where implicit instruction is better? What do you think? Go ahead and unmute or go ahead and type in the chat. Where do you think it's better to use implicit instruction? I gave one example. Let's see what you're thinking. And I know this is coming out of the blue and you're probably tired from teaching this morning. So just go with the flow. Okay, Lisa says in the beginning of a lesson. I love that idea. And I'm going to ask you to see if you can tell us why, Lisa. Why do you say that? I think that's a great idea. Why do you think it's good to do it at the beginning of a lesson? What did you say? Scaffolding or modeling? Okay. If it's implicit, when you have an experience, it can be a scaffold to understanding, right? We're checking with prior knowledge. Okay, any other thoughts? Why might we just start with an experience where students learn by doing? What does that do? How does that help students? When might we use that?
Well, it's nice to get them engaged if you're doing with some sort of a game or an activity, and then in some classes, it's good to try to get them there, on time if you have a problem with late. If they
Yeah,
know you're going to do a game for a warm up every class, they might want to
yes,
get
I
ready with
see.
it.
Thank you
Okay.
for typing that and sharing that out loud with us too. Um, okay, and Stella shared too. Yeah, you can use it anytime, but sometimes that's like for the reasons you said in your chat and what Janine said, getting people active, getting them into it. And we know that we learn better when there's emotion, right? When we feel emotion, we're going to remember things better for longer. So sometimes having experience can do that for students versus being this conceptual, logical thing. Okay, great. So, like I shared, brainstorming is a great time. Hey guys, look at this picture, or remember when you were a kid at Christmas time, or remember when you went for a job interview your first time and blah, blah, blah. So brainstorming, mind mapping, okay? And especially, I will say, Raina, this is the connection from what you asked before. I think especially with beginning level students, because we just want to do it. And sometimes when we're explicit about what we're going to do and why, it can be a lot of talky that gets in the way and can kind of put students off. Yeah. So let's think about um, the opposite. Are there explicit instruction times? When do we use it? And when is it helpful to be really explicit with students and start up front and say, this is what we're doing and this is how you do it? When in a writing process is that good? Let's see what you're saying in the chat. Yes. Yeah, I agree, Janine. Starting with an agenda explicitly at the beginning, always. Even if you're going to be implicit, just saying, because it's great for neurodiverse as well as neuro-traditional people. Everyone plugs in better when they feel like teacher's taking care of me, they have a plan, and this is what we're going to do. I totally agree. Um, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. I see that. No, I get it. I was like, I think she got it backwards. But the point is, yes, like Lisa said, when we want to scaffold, when we want to model, and we want students to know exactly what the rules are with clarity, because when students are clear, they're more motivated and they probably achieve better as well. So again, when we're doing modeling, when we're talking about emphasizing your content and your thoughts and what's important to you. When we're doing detailed editing as well. When we're saying, let's look at this specific part of the writing process, like a thesis statement, okay? Or like Janine was saying, let's talk about the different sentence structures that we need to be more powerful in our writing, okay? This is all good stuff, you guys. Let me see. Is there a time when we do both? I mean, obviously, but how might you describe a hybrid approach for writing? I think we kind of sort of did that. Like Janine said, here's my agenda, and this is what we're going to do. And now take out a paper and do a free write or do a this or do a that. Um, we implicitly state what we're going to do, and then we do it, and then maybe we explain it later. Like there's a name for this, beginners. It's called brainstorming. Say it with me, brainstorm, and you can show a picture. They don't need to know the word brainstorm to brainstorm, right? So that's the idea. And I think we need to be intentional with our choices. I think we all fall into one or two categories. I used to be very implicit. I would like, let's just do all this stuff. And I forget, oh, wait a minute. It helps to like have a label and be able to, access this later. And some of us are super conceptual and like, where's the joy? Where's the feeling and the longer term memory from having a good experience? So just think about maybe where you're at. Hey, welcome, Kehan. And let's move on. So we're thinking about the big picture in a lesson if we're being implicit or explicit, but we know that it's helpful to have a process, a sequence of stages in a lesson plan. And you can see this famous WIPIA acronym on the screen. Anybody know what it stands for? Feel free to choose a letter and type or call it out, unmic yourself. This is going to help us as we go towards the end of our course and share together and learn while writing with stages of a lesson. What does a W stand for? Anybody know?
Warm up.
Thank you. Warm up. We only learn by building on what we already know. And adult students know a lot already. So they can review. And when we're solid in some of the basic structures, we can build on it better. Excellent. Thanks. How about I? Okay, our people are typing in the chat. Maybe already did it already. Check it out, Miguel. Warm up, introduction, presentation. Good. So let me just click on the screen. Let's see those. Okay, what else? What's the second P for? Anybody know this already? Practice. Bang, you're killing it, Miguel. What else you got? Okay, E and A. Okay, typing. So we are trying to evaluate. So how do I know if I got it? Well, I need a little bit of a test, an assessment, a quiz, a reading, whatever. And this is what it all comes down to. This is what we want students to do with all learning is to what? Apply it. Okay. So real quickly, just in terms of when you're thinking about your lesson planning, I know that some of this is second nature to you, but I think we can get lost if we don't kind of think about the time. We know that time is always a factor in our classrooms. So when we're doing a warm up or review, don't get too much time on this because we can get sucked into it. If you're like, oh my God, I really got to review. Well, yeah, but we can do something as simple as, have you ever? And have people respond, yes, I have. Great, that's our topic for today. Let's get into it. Or, something related to brainstorming, or topic sentence, but we got to keep it short. And even shorter is the introduction. This is very the explicit part. What are we doing today, class? And why is it important to you? The more we can personalize it for each person in the class or the trend of what our students need, the better. So we're talking about writing covered letters because a lot of you told me that you are in the job market. You're trying to get more money. So that's why we're focusing on this today. Okay, we got to have a good why for our students. Um, so it's short, 30 seconds. Your introduction is 30 seconds, what we're doing and why. Your presentation, we're going to need more time, right? Because we're modeling and we're having students try some stuff. Mostly they're looking at an expert. That would be the teacher or another student or a video or listening to something or seeing a model writing task. So that's going to take some time. We know that. But the key thing here is their practice. They need to get engaged. They need to be involved, whether it's on a computer or pen to paper, whatever. And if we can do it in a multisensory and collaborative way, all the better. But students need to know at the end of the time, am I getting it? Am I doing it right? And we need to have ways to evaluate. We're going to spend some time on that at the end of our time in this webinar. But something that we don't often think about is application. How can we connect what we're doing in our class to our students' lives? How does it become real world? First of all, are we writing about things that students care about? And are they able to connect it to their job, to their family, to their community, to their future education? Yeah. So these are the 7 stages. All right. We'll do something goofy right now. I'm just going to let you look at the screen and do a little bit of 20-second memorization because I'm going to quiz you in about 5 minutes. So everybody knows what both P's are for? All right. I'm moving on. So the key here is that we want to connect a WIPIA or a 7-stage lesson to a writing lesson. Are there ways that they come together? And what we just looked at and what we're looking at now is really to prepare you for your lesson if you haven't done it yet this week, your first one, and definitely for next one. We need to know that a writing lesson plan follows the writing process, and there's a correspondence. Um, when we look at pre-writing, that usually happens in a warm-up or a review. It can happen in an introduction and in a presentation. When we're doing the writing, we're going further down the sequence with presentation, practice, both guided and communicative, and we make sure that there's comprehension checks. When we're writing, it's like, did we use this vocabulary, or did we make sure that we are writing about something that's important to us, or can we make it more important to us and personalize it? Are we, using the grammar we've been practicing? Again, the sharing and revising and sharing and editing are both tied to our guided and communicative practice. And again, the difference between revising and editing, what? Revising is the big stuff. Maybe we just are totally off topic. Boom, get the topic, revise, big picture. Another big picture down the scale a little bit is making sure that we're organized, that it's making sense, that we're making impact, especially if it's an argument or making a claim. Whereas editing, as we know, is the little stuff. Revising gives us good content, but editing gives us accuracy and a powerful language that people will actually read and pay attention to, right? And finally, post writing. This was all described in some of the work you looked at this week and your comments. But one of the things I love about what's in this Moodle course is that post-writing is not just application and evaluation, but it's sharing. It's giving a purpose for writing. And I know that some of you called that out, and I loved it. All right. So any questions or concerns about this? Anything you think doesn't make sense or you want to ask about before we move on? All right. Um, just some other considerations. Um, well, let me just ask you, is it helpful to see the two processes linked together, the lesson plan and the writing sequence? I hope you can see kind of a similar flow. But a couple of key things we need to remember in anything, right, is we have to start where the student's skills are. If they can't generate ideas, if they're just stopped up, we need to spend a lot of time on pre-writing. If they're overly sensitive to editing, we need to be careful about that and maybe focus more on revising than editing. So we need to be really careful where our students are at, and make sure that students get a chance to do the assessing themselves and with other people. I think you guys really caught that in the course, and that can be challenging, especially with beginners, and we'll talk about that later. But we really need to make sure that we tie up each lesson sequence piece before we move on. Okay? So we've been talking about lesson plans, writing process, putting them together. That's my tie up. Let's move on. All right. So here's a quote. I'm wondering if someone would like to unmute themselves and read it out loud for the group, and then we'll discuss it.
A writing lesson need not, therefore, take place in heads down silent classroom. For any task, we should consider what classroom activities will help our students use the new language in a meaningful way so that speaking it, listening to it, and reading it will help them write it with more confidence. Anne Rains.
Thanks. Okay, so what stands out about that quote to you? What does it mean to you? What would you like to share that of significance about it? I'm checking the chat.
Dave,
Yeah.
I think sometimes with the writing, students feel like they have to go at it alone rather
Ah,
than, ask questions or collaborate. And
yeah.
so it makes it like you're alone in an island by yourself trying to figure things out. And that's like
Yeah.
one of the things we need to do with the students, kind of say, you can collaborate, kind of, put your ideas together and come up with something that, you know, could be
Yeah.
helpful for all of them to learn to
Yeah.
collaborate.
I love that. A balance between I'm kind of going to work on my own, but then it's a group communal experience and bringing some support from other people and making it fun. I love that, Raina. Any other thoughts? Any key words that stand out to you besides writing? Are there any communication skills or activities listed in this quote?
Maybe think, pair, share could be something
Oh,
that
cool. I love that. Yeah.
uh, and also just class discussions before.
Right. Okay. So it's not just writing, you see, it's speaking, listening, reading. So this is taking an integrated approach, right? We want to get big bang for the buck. So anytime we can pair writing with reading, listening, speaking, in ways that support the writing, I'm all for it. I know you are too. And okay, Han, a writing class should not be silent. They can do all the things. Yep. They can develop ideas and feel more confident. Yeah, I agree. There are times when it's great when it's super silent, but if we do that all the time, ugh, it's scary for a lot of people. As an introvert, I kind of love it, but okay. So the idea again is that we're integrating. We want to, especially in our ESL classes, time is so limited. We want to do so much. And why not support writing with speaking? Why not support writing with a good reading model beforehand? Why not support structure and understanding with a listening for key words that they can then use in their writing? So there's a lot of great ways we can build this all together. And then finally, student to student and student to teacher feedback. It's not just teacher to student, right? Any other comments before we push on? Okay. I can tell that a lot of you guys do a lot of these. You live up to this quote. It was really great to read all the great activities you're doing in your classes. All right. So let's get into, so we've talked about the lesson plan because you're going to be using that. And there's lots of ways there's different structures, but for us to be on the same page, we're going to use that WPIA 7-stage lesson plan. You're going to access it in Moodle. You're going to use it. And we looked at Moodle, different activities for each of those stages, and you commented on them. So we're going to do a little bit of a review here, a little bit of a discussion. Um, One thing I want to say as a finishing off the last slide and moving into this new section is that we know that we frequently, not everyone, but we really do write as we speak. So if we don't speak very much, we're going to have a hard time writing. Or if we aren't getting a chance to listen, or we're not going to have a chance to expand our writing. So I really want to do, like Miguel was saying, have students really have a chance to talk about stuff and try out their ideas in speech first, sometimes before writing, but not always. Sometimes we say, do a quick write, silently, go, and then share. So there's lots of ways to do it, but especially for our ESL students, we write the way we speak. So let's do some speaking. All right. So again, let's talk about these areas. We've got the pre-writing, writing, sharing, revising, sharing, editing, and post-writing. So what are some great activities for these? Okay, let's look at the chart the way you did in Moodle and just kind of reflect on some of these and learn from each other. We have a thumbnail sketch of the 6 writing skills activities. In the left column, it's the stage in blue, so this is a pre-writing stage. Then the next we have the skill, and then we have some um, activities. So when we're looking at the writing skill, I want you to think about your class. I want you to think about one of these skills as we look at these 6 stages that you haven't done a whole lot of, or that you really know, gosh, this is an area I need to focus on because my students need to grow in it. Which is one that you can focus on? And so let's look at this. We talked a lot about pre-writing, brainstorming, clustering. I want to ask you guys what you think of when you think of clustering. What does that mean for you? How does it tie to pre-writing? Anybody have thoughts on that?
A mind map, what I thought.
Okay, so the mind map. So how does that cluster ideas for students?
Um, well, it's each idea is kind of its own circle, I guess, and you can
Yeah,
connect
yeah,
circles with lines. And then the video, there was also the Venn diagram that's good for
nice.
if you know there's 2 topics that will be the main
Yeah, yeah,
topics or the points of comparison, then you can see where they overlap or not.
nice. Yeah, I just feel like having a visual is so powerful for anybody. First language, second language, 12th language. If we don't have those categories in our brain, the graphics give us those, and then we can get those structures and those categories into our writing better, right? I just want to remind us that when we do our brainstorm, it can be all over the place if we're not doing a mind map. And so color coding, like how about which stuff should go first? Let's do those in green, circle all the green or number them 1. What stuff might be second? Let's do those in yellow or number them 2. 3, the final stuff, red. It's just I feel like sometimes we can support students before they start writing randomly. They've got this structure. So I just think that's a really part of pre-writing that sometimes we forget. It's not just getting some words and sentences down, but how do they come together in an organized way or powerful way before we start writing? So we've got some structure before we get into it, and then we have to rewrite it all. Okay, good stuff. So next part. Um, Planning and outlining, but still in our pre-writing stage. Prior to writing it, um, we can review 4 elements: title, topic, sentence, supporting sentence, conclusion. We can use a diagram. We can do bulleting. Then students can generate. Again, we've got this I do, we do, y'all do kind of thing where we're moving from lots of teacher modeling to student taking more ownership. What do you think of this? Do you agree with this process? Is it too much? Is it appropriate? Does it work for some levels, not others? I'm curious what you guys think. Just take a minute to look and think.
Well, I sort of did this week in the writing class I'm teaching, but I hadn't seen this yet. And so I did it sort of the way I did it last semester when I taught it. And I think now I'm reflecting and I can put this in the discussion post at just how much more carefully I would like to approach outlining.
Hmm.
Um, and how I also am trying to figure out how to have room for those students who don't like to work this way, who don't want a clear plan before writing, students who want to kind of make a mess and then clean it up into an outline.
Yeah, I love that you're willing to consider different approaches for different students. I know I'm kind of like that. Let me just go after it and then I'll organize it with my color coding or my clumping of circling and connecting. But other people are like, that's crazy making. I can't do that. I've had some dyslexic students who say, teacher, don't do that. It hurts. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
they're like, can we like do a nice, organized way? And everyone's different, but I
Yeah.
appreciate that reflection. Other thoughts? Okay, thanks, Andrea. She says it's appropriate for all levels. Okay, all right. And even if you got beginners, you know, everything this is, you go kind of micro. I'm going to turn off my camera because it's getting in the way a little bit. Can you hear me better? Is that better? I just felt like when I have a bad web connection here. So,
I
all
see
right,
the same.
let's move on. Next slide, next stage in the writing process, some great activities that you might consider for your teaching. All right, here's your writing stage. Paragraph frames. We talked a lot about this. You got some examples. Um, do you have any ideas for specifically how to do this? How to help people, our students, um, get a topic sentence or supporting ideals, details? How do you come up with a conclusion? How do you help them build it or see it so they can do it themselves? What are some of your favorite activities? Have you guys used a close paragraph frame, close activity or paragraph frame before? Encourage you to try it out. This can work. You can do it in a simpler way with poetry, where there's some great poems about my parents or my life, or Sandra Cisneros has some in House on Mango Street, where students read it, and then you take out some of the words that are very personal, but then there's the general things that like my father or my mother or my blah blah blah, and they fill it in, and then they've got the structure, and but they can personalize it. Sometimes they call that a copyright. And you can do that with, more academic writing as well. Letter of a cover letter or a resume. Any other thoughts? I know you guys are seasoned teachers out there, some of you. Feel free to pipe up. All right, I'm going to move us on then.
Dave, I think that like you said, the for higher levels you could have something. I think someone put it in the chat. Is that Carolina about
Yeah,
a hamburger? I
yeah,
use it with my higher levels where I can actually have a very direct, where I kind of have the model of a hamburger, and then I said
yes,
the top bun is your introductions, the patties are your, your supporting details, and the bottom of your bun is your conclusion. But that really works with higher levels. With the lower levels, Dave, I'm struggling with them having a picture and having them start with like, let's do an introduction. what do you see in this picture? How do we describe it? Now let's put it in a sentence. And that's a scaffolding that I'm struggling with it with a lower level beginning low A.
Yeah, I think that having a picture is that's one of my favorite things to do. Like a really obvious picture, like a picture of an apartment during Christmas, or a family at a park, or something, someone relaxing at the beach or something where it's really obvious, and then use a spider map. So starting with the outside legs, like tell me the vocabulary you see, and write them that all around the outside. And then if we put these words together into one word or three words at the most, what is it? And then that goes in the middle. So you see green, you see tree, you see light, you see fire, you see presents. What is that all about? Christmas. And then you can say, let's tie that to a paragraph, or let's look at it in a reading, and then let's put it in our own writing. So here's the reading of that now, but it's St. Patrick's Day coming up for us. So I can actually put an example in the resources. I have a St. Patrick's Day one you can use tomorrow if you want.
If you share
But
that with me, Dave,
yeah,
I will apply that and then see
I
how
have it in, I've done it before with our FSI, our elementary school teachers, but I need to keep moving. I will do that. Let me put my St. Pat's. So I like the
okay.
idea of picture and saying all the words around the outside, those are called details. The word in the middle is your main idea. Now, what's a topic sentence or a main sentence? It's where you say, how do we connect all those words on the outside to the word in the middle? So if it's Christmas, like there are a lot of exciting parts to Christmas.
I'm gonna
Okay,
use that spider idea. I really am. I thank you
cool.
for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of you don't want it to like there are many things to Christmas. First there are trees, then there is red, then there is green, right? I mean, you want to be a little more nuanced than that, but it's a great start for the real basics, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to move us ahead because there's more here. All right. So evaluation. Let me just say a couple things. How do you guys, we're going to actually, I'm going to save this because we're going to take a lot more time on this later and we're kind of moving along real quickly. So before I do that though, is there any burning comment about evaluation checklists or self checklists? I know that this can be challenging for students. What do you guys think about that? Have you used them? Do you like them? Do students like them? Are they helpful?
I use them. I like them. Some students totally blow through them and pass them and don't even make any checks. And it's
Yeah.
hard to know. Like I try to remind them to look at it before they start writing. And
Yes.
sometimes that scares them off from writing.
Yeah, I think especially with lower, we can like break it down in parts. Like, let's do choose the out of five. What are the two or three that you need to work on most, kind of thing, like I did at the beginning with the
Mhm.
agenda for you guys. So it's less scary. Like there's 20 I can checklist things. Totally get that. Yeah. It also helps with peer evaluation, right? Because there's not so much to deal with. One of the things I will say about a lot of checklists is that they're very like grammary or punctuation oriented. I like to put a place where it's about the content. I liked what you said about blank. So it's like what were you talking about that I connected with? Or maybe I didn't understand this part. So it's you do instill some part of the content piece in there versus just always making it accurate. I'm moving us on. Okay, post writing. So reviewing, publishing, and error correction. What did you guys pull out of this that might have been new for you when you thought about post writing? Anything jump out of you that said, "Wow, I never thought about that before"? Any new ideas come to you from the post writing? Something that you've never thought about doing that you thought, "Oh, maybe I'll try that." For example, I never think about error correction after it's all finished. That was new for me. It's like, well, wait, we're done. I don't want to go back into it. But yet you can say, we've done these great writings. Let's see what we're going to learn to do next time based on the key things that all of us might have needed to do better this time. So, like, you're kind of showing them it's coming from your writing into our lesson. I'm not just doing this randomly. And they have more buy-in. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? I'm going to check the chat. I see some stuff coming up here. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I never had done that before this course. Um, again, publishing, some of you guys talked about having students do digital publishing of their work. Let me turn off my camera again. It's messing things up. Um, I love that. I used to get my students, all their writing about a topic and put it into a book back in the days when we put the tads, what do they call them? You push them through and you open up in the back with a little cardboard. But that becomes a part of our class library. Student writing is student reading, and I love that. So anyway, I'm going to push us on. All right, so let's talk about this. We talked about, let me check your chat too first. Lots of good stuff you guys are saying. Yes, thank you, Miguel. Improving our language book, a workbook. So students can create a workbook. Nice, good stuff. All right, I'm loving what you guys are writing, and I'm going to move us on. All right, so we talked about accuracy versus fluency in our first session to some degree. And this is something that I really noticed. I'm going to see if I can put my camera back on. That really stood out to you guys, that you said, wow, I want there to be some more joy. I want it to be about content, not just periods, capitals, and grammar. Um, and just let's keep it real. If when we're talking to each other, we make mistakes speaking all the time. Do we correct each other in speaking? If we're ESL teachers, we probably do it more to our students than we do it to our family and friends. I got to tell you, people with doctorates who don't use the present participles, and I'm like, but I'm not going to correct them. I'm focusing on what they're trying to say, right? So I think, let's just not bleed all over our students' papers, right? With our red pens. Let's choose like 1 to 3 things we're focusing on. Focus on the global higher order concerns and the one next thing we're going to focus on. What is one thing to improve the writing? I mean, you guys know this, it came up in your comments, but I just kind of want to nail that in a little bit. It's about communication and about connection before it is about perfection, right? So, any other thoughts about this topic before we move on? Okay. Rain is saying, no red in my pen, no red pens. Okay. So it's about determining 1 or 2 things that are the next. What's next, right? What's the one next thing? Maybe two. And is it tied to a grammar piece we've been working on? Is it tied to a writing strategy, Okay. All right. So let us push on. Um, some key things that are helpful for students, whoops, when we're talking about fluency are these sentence frames. Some of you guys called these out. They're on the screen, but this is really helpful for students to help each other. I liked, I have a question about, I don't understand. It's just real basic responses to the writing. It's not like you have no, this is awkward or your grammar is messed up, but just kind of a general response that shows that I care about what you're trying to say. Okay. I want to know more about this. The best part is we've talked about checklists, and I feel like those sentence frames are more about the content and the fluency, and then the checklist can be more about accuracy usually. Yeah. And we'll talk about those. Let's move on. So, how do you give students feedback on accuracy in their writing? Anybody want to respond to that? I'm going to throw some stuff on the screen. I'm going to make some comments, but I'm going to ask you to comment as well. Um, you know, I love using error correction taken from students' writing, real writing. And when you've built a close, safe community, some students say, teacher, use my writing, because they want the correction, but they feel safe. And other people are more engaged, like, oh my God, it's like students writing. I just found it so powerful. And it can be small groups, like you've got your higher level and the other people are doing their thing, but we're going to gather around this piece of writing and dig in. And I can see from smiles on your faces that you've done that too. And it's so community building. And like the second bullet, do students keep a log of their errors? Like, What is one thing I'm going to work on? What is one thing I improved from my last writing? You know, they call this self-efficacy, right? When I feel like I'm getting better, I'm going to persist. And that's a big way to do it. Um, you can see samples. Um, you know, I'm not going to say a whole lot about that, but we've got talked a lot about peer review, and just awareness building. Like, let's underline, let's circle all the blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, let's make sure that we have appropriate similarity to that. And of course, when students get to read aloud, one of my favorite things with beginners was have had students would write about all these pictures, maybe their own pictures or pictures from the magazine, and then it was a guessing game. Someone would read it would read the writing, and students would guess which picture it was. So it's a listening comprehension, it's a critical thinking, and it's a good follow-up to their writing that ties in everybody. All right, let's keep going. So feedback for accuracy. Again, you guys, most of us are pretty good at this. Let's keep it real. When we became ESL teachers, we're like, okay, we got to make this baby look good. And our students care about this. They want it to look good. They want it to be powerful. Um, I'm just reading your comments here. And I love what some of you guys saying about asking questions more than saying awkward or, just asking students about their work so they're more self-critical. It takes a little more time, but if we only do it for the big things in the writing, for one or two things, it can be helpful, right? But getting back to the accuracy, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of stuff on the screen here really quickly. And I just want you to feel, I want everybody, I'm going to check to make sure everybody in this Zoom writes one chat about one of the things that we do before we go. I'm not letting you leave, okay? So editing marks. These can be helpful, especially at the higher levels when they're more familiar with them, and we add more as they get up there. Spelling, um, you know, these you got to be careful because they can be really dehumanizing. But if you're focusing on one or two things, right? More editing marks. You see wrong word, take out a word. I really like these put together and change the order things or create a space, you know. Um, Evaluating the writing, how do we provide evaluation summatively? So there's a lot of ways, you guys, we talked about this in the course with rubrics. You can see, what is the part of the writing, the paragraph, and then, how many points per part. This can really be helpful to students. I'm a fan of um, what's it called? One topic rubrics or a single point rubric where you're saying, this is what, it's just one thing. And then did they get it? Yes or no? Some more examples. I'm going to plow through here. Another rubric where you're talking about sentence structure and vocabulary, grammar, format. In LA Unified, we have a student score sheet that we use in ESL that talks about content, comprehensibility, and accuracy. And you progress from 1 where it's new to a 4 where you master it. But we have to have space for feedback too, right? I'm checking the chat real quick. Nice. Thanks for sharing in the chat, guys. I'm going to plow through a little bit here. Okay. Love this for beginners. I can statements. We show it at the beginning of our writing process, and we look at it at one time or twice in the middle, and we come back to it at the end, right? So they can build. It's not a one and done. They get focused with what they need to do, and maybe they choose 3 that they want to have. They circle them at the beginning, and they make sure that they check them in by the end, right? You can go deeper with portfolio assessment. This is pretty intense, right? It's kind of like, I learned this, it was new, I learned it, I improved, I still need to get better at it. Now, this isn't pretty intense, but we all have our favorite ones of these. Um, I love this idea of reflection. Maybe if you have time after every first or third or at the very last part of the term after each writing, what did you learn to do better? Just reflecting and giving them these categories so they don't have to generate from 0, right? All right, I'm going to move us along. All right, reflection, again, writing reflection at the end. I'm writing this letter to reflect on my progress. I believe I have some strengths, and I think I'd like to do blah, blah, blah. Okay, I gotta look at the clock. We're at our time here. You get it. I just want to close out here talking about what's coming forward for us. Okay, we have a lesson plan, and you're going to see this in Moodle if you haven't seen it already. Put the topic, and please don't say writing a paragraph. What is the topic? Is it education? Is it health? What is the relevant student-centered life, real life thing? Okay. Fill that out, and then we're going to focus on the writing lesson plan. It's really important that you see these dates, write them down, put them in your calendar. Um, we need to have some firm deadlines here. All right, March 15th, all the week 3 activities are due. So I can give you feedback so your colleagues can give you feedback. Okay. And then in week 4, the final day of the course is March 22nd. And I know it's a first week of the term for many people in LA. I don't know about the rest of you guys. It's a busy springtime, but I'm just going to encourage you to do your best to try and stay on track with these deadlines. And there's a couple more things real quick. We don't have time for this. You can deal with it later. Hopefully you're thinking you've come away with 1 or 2 notes about something that's new for you that you want to do. But we do have to address continuing education units. Is this you, Adria?
This is me. Thank you so much, Dave. And I will say, I know we had to skip over that reflection question. That's one we skip over when we need to, but there's an opportunity. It's important, and there's an opportunity for you to do that within the online course as well. You've given lots of feedback, and shared with us your thoughts about, what's feeling important to you throughout today's session. So hopefully that has been really positive for you. And thanks very much, Dave, for walking us through the content of this session and for being so engaged as our facilitator in the online course as well. So I get to come on and just give you a little bit of wrap up and heads up about our partnership with CSU Sacramento's College of Continuing Education to be able to provide CEUs, or continuing education credits. So I want to be clear that every participant who completes the course requirements will receive a certificate from CalPro that shows the number of hours, which you see here on the screen is a 14-hour course. But because of the partnership that we have with Sac State, we're also able to offer CEUs, and that converts by their conversion into 1.4 CEUs, quite precise. So if you are interested in that, just be on the lookout after the end of the course. Within sort of that week after the course closes, we will send you, our CalPro team will send you information about what to do. And if you're interested in that, let us know and we'll give you the registration form. There is a fee attached at somewhere $65, $75, something like that. And that is handled directly with Sac State. But just wanted you to have that information that you'll get a certificate either way. And you can also apply for CEUs if you wish. So that's where we finish. Again, I will just say thank you. Oh, and Dave's put an LAUSD specific note in the chat as well. Again, thanks, participants, everyone, for being here today. And this is the last time we get to see each other like this. And I already told you this is one of my favorite things about these courses. But there's lots more course to come. So you have another 10 days or so going on over in Moodle, and persist, stick with us. We love having you, and thanks again to Dave and to everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Take
Thank
care.
you, guys. Great work so far.